Hey friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a bit of a different video for you guys. I'm actually participating in a video hop tomorrow that is going to be an intensive Copic coloring card. I'm going to do an entire background going from a plain white background to an entire Copic colored background, and then I'm also going to do some new skin tones and some new hair colors. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely stay tuned for tomorrow. There's also going to be a big giveaway of an entire release with a stamp company that I'm working with, that I've worked with in the past and really love. So stay tuned for that, but I didn't want to miss my usual Friday upload, so I thought I would just do a quicker video today and talk about the different types of glue that you can use for card making. I get questions quite often about what kind of glues I prefer, and also some people might be trying the glues that I use and not having success. And so I just thought maybe I would do an overall video and explain the different reasons behind using different types of adhesives, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. So I'm going to break it down into 3 different categories. So I'm going to put everything off to the side, and we'll go through each one at a time. So the first kind of adhesive that I wanted to go over is what's called tape runner adhesive, which involves some kind of glue in a dry form that is on a roll, and so you would press down on the paper and it is going to add some kind of adhesive there. This one here is a removable adhesive. This one is nice because you can use it to stick things down temporarily, and then when you are done with it, you can just rub it off with your fingers and it'll peel right off, and you'll be left with the plain cardstock. So I just rubbed off a little bit at the bottom so you could see that hopefully on camera. There is also permanent adhesive. You can get it in like a solid strip. I kind of prefer the dot runner adhesive. So that one also has little tiny dots that have little glue in it, and it's very sticky, and that is what you can use to then add something over top. There's also like ATG guns, and unfortunately I don't have a refill for this one, so I can't show you, but I use this one a lot in my older videos. If you go back and watch my videos from when I first started, I used this quite a bit back then. The reason that I stopped using this one is the refills are a bit expensive, and with all of these tape runner adhesives, you do end up with quite a bit of waste. So especially for these ones, like you keep this part, this is the piece that you would continuously use, and this is the refill that you would snap in. But when you're finished with it, this is what you throw away, this entire plastic piece. And I don't love that. I really don't love the fact that I'm just, you know, throwing away a bunch of plastic. So that is one reason that I kind of moved away from the tape runner adhesive. The nice thing about the tape runner adhesive is that it does stick down very well and very permanent. The bad thing is the waste. It also doesn't give you a lot of time to change your mind. So if you didn't get things on there straight the first time, it's very hard to tear that back up and reposition it. So I prefer using liquid glue, which is the category that I will show you next. But occasionally I do use the tape runner, mostly the removable one, because like especially when I'm doing my coloring, if I want to adhere something down, if my paper keeps moving around on the desk, I can add that to my work surface and then it's not going to budge. Now I've got permanent down there as well, so I can't push that down too hard. But that removable adhesive will hold that paper down into place while I'm filming, and then when I'm done I can just pick that up and then rub the glue off the back before I die cut the images, and then I'm good to go. So I use this one the most. There are things that this one is good for, especially when just assembling different kinds of interactive cards. I use this one when I do the Magic Iris interactive cards using the Lawn Fawn dies. There are a few things that I use it for, but on the whole, I prefer liquid glue, which I will go over next. So there are all kinds of liquid glue as well. These are just a few of the ones that I have used a lot, and so I feel like I can speak to, but there are so many different brands of liquid glue. The one that I used for years and years was the Tombow Mono Multi Liquid Glue. If you watch my old videos, for probably about, I would say 7 or 8 years, I was using this glue quite a lot. I really did love this one. It had a finer nozzle, not super fine, but a fine-ish nozzle, which I really liked. It also had a wider nozzle at the bottom, which I never ever used. And in fact, I know a lot of people have said they didn't even realize that this nozzle was down there because they just never took the bottom off. They just thought that was part of the packaging. But you could use that if you wanted to for to cover larger surfaces, but I never used it. Another one that I do like is the Lawn Fawn glue tube, and I do use this one on occasion. It has a similar nozzle to the Tombow Mono Multi, and it works about the same. It has the same properties. The thing that I like about liquid glue is if you want to adhere something down, you do have a little bit of time. Let's grab an image here. We'll just take a little fairy here. But you have a little bit of time to add that liquid glue on the back, and then you can position it. So if you decide that you don't want it there, that that's not quite, you know, where you wanted it, you can shift that a bit and kind of decide until that glue starts to harden up and dry permanently. Maybe I should zoom in a second. Hold on. Hopefully that's better. So yeah, at first I could shift her pretty easily. Now it's getting a bit harder, and different glues have different drying times. But yeah, I could, you know, adhere her down, and I can still kind of shift her a little bit. It's called wiggle room. That's what we call it. But you have time to kind of manipulate your images a little bit more, which you don't have so much with the dry adhesives like the tape runner. With the tape runner, you pretty much have to put it down. You can sometimes pull it up if you work quickly, but you have to pull it straight up, and you will often tear your paper underneath, so that can be hard to cover up, you know, that you've just done that. The one that I have been using the most lately, which was recommended by you guys, I did ask you guys to recommend your favorite glues to me, and there were two that I got the most votes for. It was this one, and I can't remember the name of the other one right now because it was like 2 years ago, but I went with this one, and I really love it. The thing that I love about this one is the very fine nozzle. It has such a detailed little nozzle that gets in behind all of your tiny little die cuts. The reason I bought it was for those tiny little die cuts, but I ended up liking this glue so much that I've used it on pretty much everything since. I just really love it. It comes with that little pin that goes in there, which I believe is stainless steel, so it doesn't rust or anything, and that keeps the nozzle from getting clogged up. You can also buy refills for this one. They come in a really big container, so there's not a ton of waste. You can refill your bottle a few times from that. So that's the thing I do like about these liquid glues, although these two are not refillable. Well, you could refill this one potentially, but it doesn't have refills at this time. So you would have to throw this entire packaging away and buy a new one, which I don't love. But they do work really well, and they last a long time, especially the larger bottle of the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. This is the 4 ounce that also comes in a 2 ounce, which is smaller. But like I said, the waste kind of bothers me, so I prefer the larger bottle, which I can continuously refill, and then I'm not, you know, this is still the same bottle I've used the entire time since I bought it, so I have not had to throw anything away, and I haven't used up the refill bottle yet either. So I have not had any waste from this at all. The one thing to note about the liquid glue, which I get a lot of questions about and some people seem to struggle with, is the liquid glue can leave some marks on the back of your paper there. You can kind of see that there is a tiny bit of a bulge there where that cardstock is wet, because I did lay down quite a bit of liquid glue when I put that down with the glue tube from Lawn Fawn. And the problem with that is if you are using any kind of thinner paper or cardstock, the liquid in there has to have a place to go. So if your paper is too thin, it will buckle and warp your cardstock. I typically only use thick cardstock. I use like 100-pound cardstock from Lawn Fawn or MFT. I use heavyweight cardstock. I also use heavyweight cardstock for my Copic coloring, although you guys know there's been a bit of a saga going on with the Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White and them kind of changing the thickness and all of that. So I've got videos on that if you're interested. But anyway, I typically only use thick cardstock, so I don't have an issue with the liquid glue buckling my paper. But if you are experiencing that, that means that your paper is not thick enough to absorb that liquid, and that is why you are getting that buckling. So if you are you know, using that kind of cardstock, you may prefer the dry adhesive like the tape runner, because then you won't have that issue. That's not going to cause any of those problems. So we're going to move on to the last category next, and that is what I'm calling specialty adhesives. These are adhesives that I still use and keep in my stash because they serve a specific purpose, but they're not for everyday use for card making for me. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be right for you, but that's just how I feel. So what I mean by specialty adhesives are adhesives that I just use on occasion for specific things, like the double-sided adhesive tape, which technically you could use to assemble your cards, but I typically use these for adding panels that where the liquid glue or the tape runner wouldn't be strong enough. The tape runner wouldn't be strong enough and the liquid glue would take too long to dry. For instance, using like acetate to make a shaker card. If you want to glue your acetate down to your frame or whatever so that you can make a shaker card, these are going to work really, really well for that. They're very, very strong. So they're great for any kind of stronger things that are harder to bond to. You could maybe use them for vellum, but you would want to use it in a place where it wouldn't show, because you could definitely see through the vellum if you had it in a visible spot. This red tape is also similar to that one. You just peel off the red tape and then the adhesive is left behind. So all of those I use for mostly interactive cards and things like that. There's also like the little glue dots, which is just little dots of adhesive. I used to use these more on cards than I do now. These come in different sizes and they also work great for interactive cards, especially that Magic Iris really requires you to use these little mini glue dots. In fact, I think the ones for that are even smaller. I have to check in my stash here. But yeah, you want to use super tiny ones for the Magic Iris so that it doesn't gum up the mechanism. But it's just a little dot of glue and it's very sticky, and you can kind of stretch it a little bit. These are good for any kind of cards where you have things that pop up that you need to glue down quickly. You can put a little glue dot down at like the base of the foot and then stand them up on your box card or whatever, and that way you don't have any adhesive getting stuck on anything. So these serve a purpose for that. And then of course there is dimensional adhesives such as little foam squares, or what I prefer is the foam tape. This is the Scotch M foam tape. I use this on any cards that I kind of pop up, if you want to add a bit of dimension and just lift things up. Let's see if I can get my fairy back off here. I'm going to tear the paper, but I don't really care because I'm not keeping her on that anyway. But, you know, if I wanted to adhere her and have her popped up off the card and give her a bit of lift, then I can just take a bit of foam tape and pop that behind her, peel off that release paper, and then when I put her down on the card, you see how that causes like a little bit of a drop shadow. It just gives a little bit of lift to the card, kind of, you know, adds that little bit of dimension that takes your cards to the next level. So anyway, I just wanted to do a brief overview. If you have questions, definitely leave them down in the comments below. But I hope that helped you guys out. I hope that answered some of the questions that I get asked quite a lot about the different adhesives that I use and what's good for what purposes. The answer really is that there is no one glue that is best for everything. It really just depends on you and what kind of glue you prefer, how you prefer to make your cards. It also can depend on where you live. Some areas, you know, are drier or more muggy and wet than others, and that can really make a difference in how your adhesive adheres to your paper as well. So it's best to just experiment for yourself and see what works for you. And yeah, and have different kinds in your arsenal that are good for different things, because there isn't really any one glue that is best for everything. So anyway, I hope this video helped you out. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And then don't forget to come back tomorrow for that hop, like I mentioned. It's going to be really fun. It won't be too long. There's just a few of us involved, but it's with a really great company, and there's a giveaway of the entire release. I think I mentioned that earlier. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. And especially if you're somebody that loves Copic coloring, pretty much the whole video is Copic coloring, so that'll be right up your alley. All right, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Bye-bye.